Our good friend, Dr. Stuart Hilliard, shares in a class that you guys do, Cognition. He calls it Satan's infinite loop. And it's an example in bite work where, and you can correct me if I do it wrong, but the way I share it is the dog, let's say, bites the sleeve, and then the handler has to do some type of aversive correction, whatever it takes to get the dog off. Mm-hmm. So as soon as it pops off, they get some control, let it bite again.
Yeah.
And the dog, conversely, who goes up, bites, command to let go, boom, comes right off, may not get a bite again because it performed correctly. In detection, I see sometimes Satan's infinite loops happening. When the dog goes to Odor and does something we don't like, they'll step in, do something, the dog will stop, and then they reward it again anyway because...
Yeah. It should be the other way around.
Yeah.
So to prevent that from happening, what winds up happening is that, for the bite work example, the pressure... the dog is, there's always the issue that the dog, you're not looking to reinforce the dog voluntarily doing the behavior, right? So you're forcing the dog outs at that point, and then it gets to bite again. So you're basically, there's pressure in proximity to a high value reward of biting. So now you're desensitizing the dog to pressure. You're potentially introducing Pavlovian elements where the dog will load with pressure because the pressure now is predicting a very high value reward repeatedly. The dog is not volunteering. And then if the dog lets go on their own beautifully and it's not reinforced, then the dog, especially with something like letting go, then you should reinforce those. Those are the ones that the dog lets go of its own accord quickly with energy. Those are the ones you should reinforce on an intermittent basis. Not all the time, right? Because then you come into the same kinds of problems. If the dog has been reinforced every time they let go with another bite, then moving on to the next thing becomes very difficult. Yeah. You have all kinds of frustration problems. In detection, it would be that you could have a similar thing. They're not using pressure per se in those spots, but the dog makes an error in some fashion. You intervene, help them, and then pay them. Then the dog says, oh, the only time I get paid is when you help me. The dog begins to look to you for help and direction and all that sort of thing. You don't leave them. So there's a point at which in all of our training, you have to let a failure be a failure too and move on.
And how would you do that? So let's say the dog does something undesired at Odor. Let's say bites at it, does whatever. And then I have to intervene in whatever way. Is the better answer to say, guess what? That session is done now. Dog gets put away.
Depends a little bit on my read of the dog, right? So is that a kind of common problem that I want to separate out and work on just like don't touch the odor and as its own thing? Do I think it's a lack of understanding? Also, is this the type of dog that is already on a variable schedule, and how have they responded to not being reinforced? And if it's the kind of dog that gets really frustrated, sometimes ending the session there isn't a good thing because now they're really freaking frustrated and they're bringing that energy to the next search. And if it's arousal that's making that happen, then it's a little bit of a problem. So a little bit of what I would do in that situation is going to be dependent on my history with the dog and what I identify as the problem. For one dog, I would, right in that, say, don't do that. Good dog, right? Generally speaking, if I had to tell them don't do it, I'm not going to reward them right afterwards. Don't do it.
There has to be a delay.
Good
right?
dog, nice work. Maybe even then take them off and bring them back and do another one right away. Now they're on it. They don't mess with it. Good. And then pay them or whatever you're going to do. I might do something like that. For another dog, I might take them off and end it. And for another dog, I just might go like, okay, we're just going to leave this alone for now, and I'm going to work on it outside of the search. I'm just going to go back to some box work or whatever and say, remember, don't put your feet on these things. Don't mess with the odor.
Work on the... like obviously if it's an arousal issue, work on the calmness gets them reinforcement.
Well, maybe not so much teaching them